Hi everybody, my name is Hayden McKenzie. Welcome to this video of just rambling. Going to be rambling about some movies today. The state of movies, the state of cinema. Really just many topics that don't really constitute their own video, but I want to talk about them. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the world of movies as of late. Tenet just hit digital streaming, and it's blowing up much bigger than it did when it was in theaters. The Lord of the Rings just got re-released in 4K Ultra HD, as well as The Hobbit. And of course, the biggest news out of all of this, I believe, would be Warner Brothers announcing their entire 2021 slate of films being released directly to HBO Max and theaters on the same day. So we'll talk about that later. That's a very big topic. But for now, I'm going to tackle the first two things, starting off with Tenet. I really was indifferent on Tenet the first time I saw it. I saw it back in theaters back in September. Drove like 4 hours to an IMAX theater to see it in the big, full IMAX film experience, and I left that film with a headache, if I'm being totally honest. Christopher Nolan has always been known for his very loud, spectacle-driven type cinema, except I feel like in Tenet it was increased to a nearly comical high. And what I mean by this is that the spectacle was so overwhelming and so dense, and it populated a large majority of the film, that it left room for a decently interesting concept that ultimately didn't really have enough development for me to care about it, and also not enough coherent dialogue, I guess. Yeah, I would say that the sound mixing in Tenet is among the worst that I've heard in a very long time. Now, I haven't watched it on home video yet. I have the 4K Blu-ray pre-ordered, coming out December 15th, I believe. So I will revisit it then, see what I think about it then, maybe watch it with subtitles. But seeing it in the theater with the big, loud sound experience, I thought it was bordering on incoherent. Just so many lines of dialogue were being distorted by background dynamics. Oftentimes the audio was peaking, which is never good in a theater, especially a very loud IMAX theater. Really, it was trying to bring down the house, I think. I believe that was Nolan's goal with Tenet. And he largely succeeded with that, but I don't know if it was worth it, because the film in which he did attempt to save cinema and bring down the house with was ultimately kind of mediocre. You know, I found this story to be incredibly flimsy, despite a pretty interesting, albeit bordering on nonsensical subject of inversion. But, you know, I almost feel like that's what I should come to expect with Christopher Nolan nowadays. I think he's kind of fallen off the deep end as a director. You know, it's never good to see something like that, because Christopher Nolan used to make very thought-provoking, intelligent films while still managing to maintain the blockbuster type scope. And that's something that not a lot of directors can do. You can have one or the other. Oftentimes when it tries to stray into some sort of middle ground, it falls on its face, just like it did with Tenet. Tenet feels so much like a Michael Bay thriller more than a Chris Nolan film at points, that its concept ultimately just isn't enough to grab me beyond the bare minimum of, oh hey, that's kind of cool to think about, you know. There were great aspects to it. John David Washington as the protagonist, Robert Pattinson as fucking guy, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember any of the characters' names at all. It was ultimately either I didn't hear their names or I just don't remember. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's probably Christopher Nolan's most forgettable film. Definitely not his worst. I think Dunkirk is still his worst film. And again, not a horrible movie. Not a horrible movie at all, but definitely lacks in the department of depth or quality, I guess, that a film like Inception or The Dark Knight or even Memento has. Memento is a very small scale film compared to something like Tenet, and with Tenet you literally cannot get any larger scale than that, really. But Memento, I think, plays on the same rules of bending time and shifting the narrative at its will. I think Memento definitely does a much better job of that, which is astounding to me because that film came out 20 years ago and somehow still manages to beat out Tenet, Christopher Nolan's most recent film, in terms of depth or intelligence, or I don't like to use the word intelligence. I think just the word alone has a very pretentious connotation to it, but I mean, what other word can I use, you know? It's Christopher Nolan used to make thought-provoking, smart movies, and with something like Tenet, I feel like the whole gimmick of inversion, and that's what it is, it's a gimmick, it doesn't go much further beyond it being a gimmick. With something like Inception, the dream element plays a huge part in the plot of the film. You know, like, so much of that, I mean, the whole second half of that film takes place inside a dream. And it's like the whole driving force of the plot, the heist, the inception of the thought. So, of course, you know, they're entirely different movies, Inception and Tenet, but seeing as how Nolan is very fond of sort of playing with linearity in his films and playing with timelines, you know, it's almost become his shtick. You know, it's like he's the guy that makes the weird mindfuck blockbuster movies, but you know, it's just, you can maintain a shtick like that without it feeling like a parody of itself. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what Tenet felt like. It kind of felt like a parody of itself. And you know, there were just much simpler times in the early 2010s, late 2000s, where Christopher Nolan was not this unintentionally self-parodying character. But here we are, I guess. You know, yeah, just overall, you know, it was a decent movie, I guess. Nothing too outstanding, honestly. Nothing terribly groundbreaking. The action scenes were rousing, especially in IMAX. Huge spectacle scenes. The inversion-based tower scene where the tower was blowing up like twice at the same time, that was crazy, and it's amazing to look at. It's beautiful eye candy, and of course the stuff with the 747, but at the end of the day, it wasn't much more than that. It was just eye candy. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about Tenet. It was a very by-the-books Christopher Nolan movie that ultimately was way too self-indulgent and lacked any sort of dimension, which is something that just can't be said for most other Nolan films. But yeah, you know, it's a 6 out of 10. Didn't quite give me cancer, but yeah, it was alright. I don't know. What more do you want from me? I don't fucking know. I saw it once like 3 months ago. Give me a fucking break. Next up, in other home video news, the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit trilogies just hit 4K with brand new remasterings by Peter Jackson and company. And this is going to be a short topic because I haven't seen them. I don't quite want to pay $180 for both gift sets. But I've been reading some interviews. I've been watching a bit of promotional footage for it, and I don't necessarily know if I totally agree with the route that they're trying to take with the remasters. Peter Jackson said that his goal was to make the films look more uniform, because he himself said that The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are very visually distinct from each other, just due to the time that they were shot, the technology that was available. Lord of the Rings obviously being shot on a film, The Hobbit being shot in 4K digital film, well, not digital film, just digital, which it was shot in like 3D high frame rate, shot with like very high-tech technology that is not comparable to The Lord of the Rings at all. So yeah, they re-rendered a bunch of the CGI of both trilogies. They I don't know if they did like digital noise reduction or anything like that on The Lord of the Rings to get rid of some of the film grain, which that would suck if they did, because 4K transfers like Terminator 2 do stuff like that, and it looks absolutely horrible. Like genuinely just looks like shit. It's a fuzzy mess. But yeah, I'm very excited to get my hands on these. I don't know, you know, I'm obviously optimistic and looking forward to giving them a watch, but the fact of the matter is that I don't know if I totally agree with the mindset of making the films look more uniform, making The Lord of the Rings look like The Hobbit, because The Lord of the Rings has a very distinct feel and tone to The Hobbit, and not just in terms of visuals, but in terms of story. The Lord of the Rings is a much more adult, gritty, almost darker, in a sense, story in comparison to The Hobbit. Of course, one could argue that the Hobbit films try to take this very happy-go-lucky, maybe not happy-go-lucky, but kid-friendly fantasy story and make it dark and gritty, and that is often to the films. Totally lost the word that I was thinking of there. I don't fucking know. I'll think of it in like 15 minutes. But yeah, I don't know what to think of it. I am optimistic, but yeah, I mean, there's not much more that I can say about it. From what I've heard, the transfers are okay. Well, maybe not okay. I've heard they were pretty good, but I don't know. I guess that's more of a subjective thing. You know, some people like when you remove all the film grain and the soul out of a movie. Others, like myself, don't. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I might have to do a follow-up to this when I actually see the 4K restorations for myself. I'm just not sure. And that brings us to the titular story for today, and that is Warner Brothers and the death of cinema. So, as I said earlier on in the video, Warner Brothers just announced that they're going to be releasing their entire 2021 release slate simultaneously on HBO Max and in theaters. So originally, they announced that they were going to do this with Wonder Woman 1984, which would have just dropped on Christmas, would have been released in the theaters that are open, and also on HBO Max. Because obviously in times like this, there are still many theaters that are closed. There aren't many at all that are open, so obviously dropping it on HBO Max would probably result in more profit than releasing it straight to the theater in the holiday season of this year. Because if they weren't to release it on digital this year and just to release it in theaters, it would have made no money, or they would have had to postpone it a whole year, either to the next holiday season or the next summer blockbuster season. But now they've announced that they're going to be releasing all 17, I think it was 17, of their 2021 films on HBO Max simultaneously. So that's Dune, that's Tom and Jerry, The Suicide Squad, many large movies, many of which I'm very much looking forward to, such as Dune. But it's a bold choice, certainly. Of course, earlier in the pandemic, we saw that oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but we saw that releasing a movie straight to digital can oftentimes be advantageous. I said oftentimes again, but take a film like Trolls World Tour. Universal dropped that film straight to digital, just a 48-hour rental, early access, home rental release, whatever you want to call it, and it made more money. Well, I don't know if it made more money or if it strictly profited more. Either one, it profited more than the first Trolls film, which was released in theaters. So Universal released this information publicly, which was kind of funny on their part, because immediately after that, AMC just said, like, hey, we're going to stop showing Universal films in our theaters, which is like, what? Dude, are you fucking stupid? That's like Fast and Furious and like Jurassic World. Are you stupid? But anyway, that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, as for this most recent development with Warner Brothers, I feel as though it could be both a blessing and a burden, because obviously in the next year, maybe even 2 years, people are going to be very skeptical to return to theaters, though vaccines are rolling out and it seems like we're in the home stretch of this virus. I just don't know if people are going to be too terribly willing to flock back into theaters or flock back into public spaces so soon after. So this could be a very smart business decision in the long run, choosing to release the films on HBO Max. Not only could it result in more HBO Max subscribers, but it could result in larger profit for the films, because let's say there are a large assortment of people who are excited for Dune that don't have HBO Max. Well, if you don't want to go to the theater next October, if you're scared of contracting something, which is a very valid concern to have, times are very uncertain and it's obviously not a virus to joke about, but say you don't want to go to the theater and you really want to see Dune, well, for $15 a month, you can watch Dune for free, as well as everything else on HBO Max. And also in 2021, there's the Snyder Cut coming to HBO Max as well. So, in the long run, this could be very advantageous. It all depends on the public's reaction to the virus, I reckon, because with a vaccine rollout, this could all be blown over within a few months, or it could take a year, maybe even longer, for the vaccine to fully run its course and for the virus to fully run its course. It's just not something that anyone could really predict, but it's definitely something that it's going to be interesting to track, I reckon, over the next few months. I, for one, both support and don't support. I can't think of any fluffy language for this. I both support and don't support this decision, because I love the movie theater experience. It is something that is very dear to my heart. Many of my fondest memories are going to see some of my favorite movies in the theater for the first time. I'll never forget the first time I saw something like Uncut Gems in the theater. It's a very unique experience, and with something like this happening, with Warner Brothers dumping everything they have on digital, it could mark the end of cinemas and movie theaters, hence the death of cinema. But it's both a fitting evolution and an unfitting evolution, because the theater experience is something that many directors today are constantly striving to keep alive, like Christopher Nolan, for example, or Quentin Tarantino very much supports shooting on film, screening his films on film. And obviously you can't do that without the theater experience. Christopher Nolan shoots on IMAX film, wants to show his movies in IMAX theaters. You need the theater experience to enjoy these films the way that the directors intended for you to enjoy them. And of course, there are dozens and dozens of movies that are released to digital every year already. Some of my favorites from this year, Da 5 Bloods, I'm thinking of Ending Things. Both of those were released straight to Netflix. Neither of them had a theatrical run because they were released in the midst of the pandemic. So, those were hits, or at least I think they were hits. I simply don't know. I haven't gone out of my way to check. I guess I'm just a horrible journalist. I'm not a fucking journalist. You know how insulting it is to journalists to call myself a journalist. Anyway, but yeah, it's a fitting evolution. I just hope that there are enough people like me who are fond of the theater experience, who are fond of savoring that experience and trying to preserve it for as long as possible. I just hope that it doesn't mark the permanent end, because, you know, I love going to an art house theater. It's great, you know, fucking watching something like The Irishman in a theater, which had a very limited theatrical release. You know, it's an experience that you can't quite recreate, and it's something that I think is worth cherishing and worth preserving. But that being said, I think this is a very smart move on Warner Brothers' part, and I think it's going to make them a fuck ton of money in the long run. And, you know, this is a bold claim. I know this is a very bold claim to make, but I think that by the end of this year, HBO Max will either have already overtaken Netflix or be a good stone's throw down the path to overtaking Netflix. Because this is a very bold move, and there's going to be a lot of people who want to stream everything that's coming to HBO Max in 2021, i.e. the Snyder Cut, the Suicide Squad. I think the Batman is coming out in 2021 as well. Well, those are all superhero movies. Dune, Tom and Jerry even, and not to mention all of the HBO content that's already on there. Game of Thrones, fucking Silicon Valley, The Wire, all of that shit. Just in one hub. I think HBO Max is a very, very good streaming service overall. I was like a day one subscriber. I've watched so much shit on there since its launch that it's bordering on unhealthy. And there's so much in one central hub. So much that I didn't know even was. Like, you know, Turner Classic Movies on the same place as Death Note. You know, it's weird to me, and I feel like if it keeps going at the same trajectory that it's currently going, it could potentially overtake Netflix, which is the biggest streaming platform in the world and has been for a very long time because it was among the first. Maybe even the first. I'm not sure. I'd have to do my research on that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. 2021 is going to be a very odd year for movies. 2020 was kind of dead. My top 3 movies are movies that might very well be way lower had I seen more films this year, but I just don't know. Yeah, this has been a very impactful year for not just movies, but the art of cinema, the form of cinema. It's been a very formative year, I think, and 2021 is only going to be even more formative. But yeah, that being said, I think that's pretty much all I had to talk about. Currently 8:30 p.m. on December 3rd, 2020. Definitely going to be an interesting holiday season for sure. So yeah, that's gonna wrap up this little rambling video. I don't know really what I was trying to do with this, just a few topics that I wanted to vent some thoughts on. Might do it more often, who knows, if I find more stuff to talk about. I don't know. If you want to hear more of this, let me know. Just a cute little podcast thing, you know. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this first installment, maybe only installment. I'll see you all in the next video. Oh, I'm actually going to take this time to talk about some projects that I have in the works. So I have this very large list of potential videos that I want to make. I really want to get more into long form film criticism stuff, like more of the scripted type things. So not quite like the Cats video or the It Chapter 2 video, which were more sort of off the dome commentary type videos. More like long form criticism. So I've been working on a video for Ready Player 1 and Ready Player 2. There's one large video for that. I've been working on a review of the Star Wars franchise, and I was even toying around ideas for a review of Battlefield Earth. But I know that's been done to death, so I would probably have to come up with something new to do with that idea before making anything out of it. Because, when it comes to movies that have been dogged on to absolute pieces like Battlefield Earth, it's just not something that you can do much original content about when it's just been shit on so frequently. But who knows? It'd be very fun to talk about one day, I reckon. But yeah, that's basically just sort of what I got planned. There's obviously more things that I want to do. It takes me a very long time to do anything because I get so demotivated, especially with video editing. I get demotivated so quickly, and it's something that I definitely need to work on, because this is something that I think I would want to pursue as a career one day. It's very fun to me. It's very enjoyable, fulfilling. But yeah, kind of just oversharing and rambling now, so I'll go ahead and let you guys go. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, tell me, I have a fat penis or something. Subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos. They're not that great, if I'm being totally honest. The It Chapter 2 video could have been way better, if we're being totally honest. It kind of sucked ass, but that's okay. The whole experience is about learning and growing and changing your style. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and or listening. I doubt you just watched the B-roll playing over this the whole time. But yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you all in the next video.